Good day, morning, night, or evening. I am a cubic core called Tactical Doll Galatz. Well, I was a tactical doll before I got exploded into trillions of pieces, and only a cubic core remained. As such, I have not a whole lot better to do but make a bit of an introduction to one of my favorite games maybe ever, Rimworld. I will try to make an introduction which is not going to treat a new player like an idiot, and an experienced player could compare notes with. Assuming I can do both, I guess I will succeed. Assuming you can bear my voice, maybe this will help. I will go over every and each step that I take and try to explain things. As usual, don't forget to roast me in the comments, dislike this video, and make sure my channel doesn't get recommended to you ever again. Well, formality is over. Flat pun is over. We will start with the menus. So, start a new game, obviously you take Colony for the tutorial purposes. I'm just taking Crash Landed. Cassandra Classic, Strive to Survive, reload anytime. So there are multiple storytellers and they are ever so slightly different. Most of the time I spent with Cassandra, and since I don't particularly like getting my colonists obliterated on the first seconds after landing, I usually just choose Strive to Survive. It's not too boring and it's not too intensive. It's just the right balance. Naturally, there are mods which can enhance the experience, but what I'm going to cover is going to cover both the unmodded and modded experience, and I'm going to get into some little detail for the mods, but not something that's going to get carried away into their territory. Times to proceed. So scenes usually just do what they are. For the tutorial purposes, everything is fine. Personally, I prefer maximum size, just so you could choose the most optimal landing site. Let's decrease the population, slightly increase temperature because I want Savannah for the purposes of tutorial. World type is, if I remember correctly, that's mod specific, but everything else is not that important. So as the world generates, personally I use mods for 3 reasons. The one is variety, the 2 is quality of life, and 3 is depth of difficulty. It makes things a little easier, it makes things a little harder, and overall makes the experience a little more fluid. Honestly, I'm a little nervous. I haven't done that kind of thing before, and I'm panicking whether or not the stream is lagging, so if the world is going to be butchered, blame me. Now normally, I would have to run around the globe to find what is the place I would like to land at, but I'll just take this size. But if you have Land Carefully mod, which is a very good quality of life mod, we can just Control P and then select what you want. So we will take Savannah. We're going to take flat terrain, maybe large river. Go to tiles, and that sounds good. So a little about terrains. If you see any roads, usually they make traveling speed faster. Modifiers, whether the terrain is flat, small hills, large hills, mountainous or impassable, modifies the speed also, but it also mostly is responsible for what terrain you are going to get in the game map and how much rock are you going to have accessible to you via mining, and it also modifies how easy or hard for you it is to defend your colony. Now, the growth period is most important for survival when it comes to things like crops and growing the crops. Temperature is most important for your colonists' comfort. Then there's types of rocks that are available. I'm not going to get into it because really I think it's just personal preference, especially with mods which have some very powerful materials available. Then whether or not animals can graze, it generally modifies whether or not there's wildlife around the settlement. So the river is usually important for the watermill, and I believe only with mods whether or not you will be able to fish. So Savanna and Arid are about the easiest terrains that you can be playing on, and if you are just starting the game, they are perhaps the easiest ones to start with. But personally, I prefer them just because they make things a lot easier to manage. But if you want a bit of a challenge, you may consider Arctic Desert or a desert, which have their own individual challenges, such as heat strokes, hypothermia, frostbite, etc. So, with that explained, let's go further. So this is for Ideologies DLC specifically, but I'm going to gloss over them briefly. What Ideologies modify is how is your starting colony going to have the central culture as, what they find acceptable and unacceptable, such as cannibalism, such as organ harvesting, such as how do they treat prisoners and slaves and how do they view that, or nudism and nature over man, etc. So it adds a bit of depth of difficulty as well as a lot of role-playing potential. Personally, I have a preset I always enjoy, so we'll go with that. Now you could spend the randomize button forever until you find the colonists you like. But personally, I can't be fussed with doing things like that. It's just too much of a time sink that is very unproductive, and prepare carefully is something that should be coming with a vanilla experience to begin with. So we'll pick this. There's me, there's Nigga, there's Jericho. Alright, I'm going to go over a few things here. So the male and female genders are obvious, and there's name, last name, and any nicknames that we may have, the biological and chronological ages. So the biological age is how old is a colonist and how old is he in actuality? What chronological age covers are things like spending time in cryptosleep caskets and similar, and while it doesn't affect the health or any long-term benefits or complications that would occur as far as I'm aware of, it's just to indicate if a colonist has spent significant time in cryptosleep or suspended animation. So it's not really a factor. Backstories can impact how good or bad the character can be. For example, some backstory elements can actually forbid certain types of work and becoming capable of doing certain things. But I generally roll with characters which don't have such traits, and then I just backstory traits, and then I just pick the prisoners that I prefer to recruit. So traits can add a few quirks which may make a colonist easier or harder to manage. And we can go over to skills. Shooting is how likely your colonist is going to be hitting accurately with a given ranged weapon. Melee is how accurate and strong your colonist is going to be in melee combat. Construction is how well are they going to be constructing structures as well as things like tables, chairs, and so on, and is responsible for their quality. It also prevents a chance of botch construction, in which case you would be losing resources. Mining is mostly responsible for how many resources you are going to be getting from a mined resource vein, for example, iron or silver, plastio, and so on. Cooking governs what kind of meals they can make and how likely they're going to make a tainted meal which could cause food poisoning and so on. So a good cook is going to ensure a healthy colony. Plant skill is for agriculture, and it is how successful the colonist is at properly seeding the plants and how many resources you are going to get once harvesting. Animals is relevant to the training of animals and how quickly we can train animals to use tricks. Well, tricks more like skills. Crafting is for crafting items, so things like clothes, weapons, maybe equipment. Autistic is for things like sculptures, paintings, and so on. Medical is one of the most important traits, and a good medic can ensure even complicated surgeries going well. And if it goes well, then the colonist who has been the patient is not going to have any further complications. It is also important to tending quality and speed, and is more likely to prevent further infections going on. Social skill is responsible for how good the colonists are at recruiting prisoners or negotiating prices with the traders, and none of them have good social skills, so I'm actually at the back foot. Intellectual is responsible for research speed, and in a way it's the least important, and in a way it is the most important skill as well. What you would prefer to have is to have colonists which have a balance of skills. Another thing I would say is that when you go with presets like prepare carefully, you probably don't want more than 4 colonists to start with, because starting with more than one may accelerate construction. Also means they're going to experience mental breakdowns much faster, because everyone's going to be cramped in a very closed-up environment. So, now we can move on to actual gameplay. Yay! Confirm. And now we are going to wait until the computer explodes. Yep. So this tutorial is meant to last about an hour and explain the most basic fundamentals of the game. Well, the first segment is going to be an hour because when I was doing the recordings I just found I can't do it in a short period of time. This is going to be a few episodes to getting a colony set up. So let's press OK and immediately pause. This is not important, this is a mod thing. But what is important is either drag selecting everything you see, or if you have the allow everything mod, you just do this and everything has been allowed. So now let's investigate the area a little and find shelter. Shelter is the most important thing no matter what terrain you are in to find. So this, for example, should serve as a fairly decent starter base. And especially if you don't bring a lot of resources, you are going to be relying on shelters like that. Otherwise, or if you plan well ahead of time on what you are going to build, what you are really going to do is make a big plan with all the allocated zones. But I will just presume I'm wanting to improvise as I go, so I don't really need to do any plans in much of a way. So I just need one more door at the bottom. Going to add a few walls here. Yeah, an extra door wouldn't hurt here. And we can fill this in. Now another tool which is important when you are improvising, and especially when it is a challenging terrain, you will most likely going to be taking a structure over, so you will be able to get shelter for your colonists quickly. Claim everything. It's going to be a boat room. We are going to demolish these. The table can stay. This is a small table, it's not that important. So we will fill in the holes. And another excellent tool that we have is a planning tool, and we can plan ahead. So since we only have 3 colonists, it's actually relatively easy to give them individual rooms right at the start. Actually, oops, not that. Yes. So let's like to have a decent amount of room for themselves. So what we are going to do is perhaps unless Oops. And this is what planning 2 is really good at, is allowing you to plan ahead the rooms that you're going to build, and you know where your colonists are going to be sleeping in within, well, hopefully within the next 24 hours. So we don't need that creepy stuff. And the most important step right now is almost taken. The next thing we are going to do is make a stockpile zone here. Yeah, about that size. Then, oops. And then outside we are going to make a dumping stockpile, which is going to come in handy pretty soon. We don't need corpses, we just need the chunks, because we will be processing rock. We can claim this as well and then deconstruct it all. So the first step has been taken. And we are going to establish this. Now, the next thing we need to do, and this is the most important structure in the game, especially when you start, is purchase table, then a fuel stuff, and the electric stuff. So the butcher's table is going to be extracting the meat from any of shut down animals, or if you have a mod, any fish that your colonists have caught, in which case we can do this and this. Now, any type of forage such as berries, animals, or fish are going to supplement your rations on the immediate start, and they will be lasting just a little longer before you finally have farms up and running. And farms are going to be our next step once we settle down and put everything so we can get this going. Now, yelling for me, negative for negative. Sadly, no Galatz. Now, I play with Combat Extended mod because it adds a layer of depth. A layer of depth to the difficulty and makes the combat a little more quote-unquote realistic and a little more sensible. So if the colonists get downed, other colonists can stabilize the downed colonist on the spot instead of having the colonist bleed out while on the way. And now, some of the people would say, well, this is cheating, vanilla doesn't have that feature, but it does. Except you have to micromanage it, and now I'm going to show what I mean. So, suppose I got downed, and all I need to do, once everything is secure, is make it a medical bed, and the next colonist is going to rescue, make the tending without any, so for example, disable doctor care but no medicine, and just improvise on the spot what kind of medication is going to be given. Well, not given medication, but treatment given. And that way you can stop fatal bleedings fast even without Combat Extended. Combat Extended does a few things to make it more realistic. For example, weapons use ammunition, which is a bit of a challenge if you don't find the traders fast enough, or you don't start making your own ammo fast enough, and you are in a bit of a pickle. Additionally, it gives quality of life to things like quickly rescuing your colonists from an imminent death, and as far as I know, Combat Extended also supports things like individual first aid kits and medic packs, and you can have designated medics on the field, which are actually going to help the rest of your colonists. So the first steps are taken. Now you see these packages, and if you add a few games on vanilla or just little modification, Rimworld, this is a Seeds Please mod. And what it does, instead of colonists having just poofing seeds out of thin air, instead colonists need seeds to plant trees, to plant vegetables, and cotton plants, devil strand, and so on. And if your colonists have a particularly low skill in plants, then they are not only botching a harvest, they are also botching the seeds, so the more scarce and more expensive resources like ironwood or devil strand may actually not yield enough seeds for you to sustain farming off, which is again a layer of difficulty added to the game. But now we can carry on. In fact, we can speed this up just a little bit. I don't like this. Now, if you don't want them to do something, you can always go here and disable fishing for the time being. Oops, no idea what that was. And now they will get to work over here. And here we have our first room established, and they are safe from the elements and can sleep in relatively dry environment. Maybe I should have disabled some of the custom music, but at this point, whatever. So okay, we'll get to it shortly. For now, we can plan the rooms just a little further. Okay, so now that this is built, what we do is fetch a creature, view forever, and we could set an ingredient radius, which means just how far is your colonist going to go somewhere to get to the body of an animal or a fish. And for now I keep it unlimited, but what you would probably prefer to do is have a stockpile for fresh corpses so that it would be butchered. So there would be a stockpile and the butcher would just need to move back and forth. That's just a bit of a quality of life. And now we can go to the field stuff, and we will add 3 bills. Cook simple meal, cook fine meal, and cook lavish meal. And for all of them, do until with the control we increase. Nope, not well. Now, simple meal is just for basic needs, and fine and lavish meals are a good boost to the colonist mood, and they should be less likely to have a mental breakdown. Once we will construct some of the environment inside, what we are going to do is get to the farming part, and after the farming part, we are going to start establishing cables in the walls and give some light to the environment. Well, not environment, to the interior. And they sleep in their own beds, which is always nice. As you can see in the needs, awful dormitory. Oh, I have a dormitory mod. Otherwise it would say barrack, and we would be quite unhappy with the barrack, but dormitory is not that bad. At least we don't need to sleep with many people. You shouldn't keep your colonists in barracks if you want to have every means of preventing a mental breakdown. You would want to establish individual bedrooms because that keeps your colonists in good mood, and if they don't have a mental breakdown, they are not going to destroy everything in their sight. Now, as for this, we will just do effectively the same. Oops. And I lost it for a sec. Control. Also, food stacks in tens, so don't make 5 increments, do 10s. Because 1.5 stack is just a waste. And some mods improve the stacks, but it really upsets Combat Extended, so I'm not daring to use it. I didn't think this through, did I? Not really a problem per se, we can just do this. And... oops. Structure. Wooden door, wooden door, wooden door. As long as the rooms are separate, we're not going to be mad about it. And like I said, when they have their own bedrooms, they are just that little bit happier. I wanted wooden. What the hell? Oh well. That's not bad. So now let's establish some farmland. In an arid environment, it's a little harder, and you need to have a structure which is relatively close to farmland, but it's a little easier in Savannah. So now, what are we going to do is check it first. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. And that. Oh. Then never mind, I don't want it. Maybe set one here and here. And now it's going to be a rice, a potato, and a cornfield. So these 3 types of crops are available in vanilla Rimworld as well as the modded one, because why would we remove it? And the difference is that rice grows really fast, but the crop yield is not exactly good. And because it's not exactly good, that means that you probably want something better in the long term, but it will definitely supplant your rations initially. And you have potatoes here, which have moderate growth with moderate yields. And lastly, you have corns, and corns take a while to grow, but they have the best yields. And personally, at least for roleplay purposes, I just like to think that way we get some dietary variety and don't really go crazy. Now, with lavish meals, that's kind of a thing, but it's not really clearly implemented as a factor per se. We're not going to complain if they eat the same food day out of day, but they'll be happier if they eat a lavish meal or a fine meal. We will resume fishing in a while, but for now, the only thing I need is something that is from a mod, and personally I believe it is a bit of a quality of life mod, at least for aesthetics, and it is tilled soil mod. And yes, it raises the fertility of the soil, but I don't really see that much of a difference, especially late game. So, and even in early game, it's not particularly noticeable difference in the first place. And I just like the aesthetic of tilled soil, so it is not something to think about. So, this is their second night. They own their own beds and in their own rooms. The next thing they need is perhaps to reinstall this a little closer. And we're going to go to furniture. And they should have some chairs and eat by a table, which means that they will not be going crazy over not eating by a table. They hate doing that. They hate being away from tables for whatever reason, but it is a Rimworld meme that has been for a while, and it's not going to change, for better or for worse. So nice. Now we will eat. Where we should be eating. Now, if you see that priorities. We can set what they are allowed to do and not allowed to do manually, and not really have control over any of it like that. But if you feel the need to improve a priority to doing something vital, like for example planting crops, then what you need is manual priorities, and then you are going to pick grow, and might as well be a trainee, and yeah, it's going to be the grower, and she should get to this soon enough. Yep. So now we are going to have future crops. We are also fishing, which means we can finally go over to the next step, which is establishing power. Now, you are going to start on a normal scenario with these technologies, but personally I would try to get a geothermal generator or a water mill as soon as possible, because it is the most stable kind of energy source, whereas wind power and solar power are at the mercy of things like dust storms, solar eclipses, and lack of wind. So you want something a little more stable. Good if we can have a conversation. Also, another thing to point out. I'll need to do this first. Oh, we don't really have much of anything. You could sell them the catfish. You'll sell them the catfish, it's not kosher anyway, just as you eel. So, what I was saying is... Steel budget table is one of the, well, not necessarily steel, but a budget table is one of the most important production buildings in the game. And it's going to stay like that for a fair while. Now, you will need both a fuel stove and an electric stove. When you are on wind or solar power, you can't really take electric stuff for granted, especially before you have researched batteries. And in the event of solar flares or early in the game, the fueled stuff is always going to be the fallback that you will want to have, so that your colonists, even if there's a solar flare or your power sources don't really make anything, you still would have some way of giving your colonists a meal. So now that initial plans have been set, we are going to install 3 wind turbines. Drag a cable. We don't want this here. Oh no. Well, that Doomrat isn't that bad, but it is bad. Just on the basis of the risk. Uh-oh. Some columns didn't reload. This thing get dangerous. The colonists normally are going to extinguish fires as a priority. It's something you pretty much never need to set. And that way they also usually protect the crops. So now put this over. We just need to clear this area, and we will cut any and all planks so that wind turbines would not be obstructed. And this can start moving on. Whoops, I pressed Q. Played too much Gencraft as of late. So, this is pretty much their first 3 nights in a nutshell. They set up the most important parts of their colony. They have the crops, they have some food, and they should not be starving. Yep. That's not too bad. Not too bad. Well, I'm going to end this episode as soon as I build the lights in the interior, and then I'm going to make episode 2 tomorrow. Assuming I don't explode or crash or I need to redo this. I started off so nervous, but now I'm just calm. I'll probably be regretting making this video and just be like, well, stream. The reason I made it a stream in the first place is really because processing it into a video and waiting for an upload is just a pain. Whereas a stream, you just stream it and it's there and it's for the record. I wanted to make this... it doesn't matter. I wanted to make this introductory video for friends of mine who kind of don't exactly grasp Rimworld that well, and while I personally view it as a very self-explanatory game, I guess a few pointers could be in order and could be of use. And if you can tolerate my voice, my attitude, and find me informative enough, then I'm happy for you. You learned something, and if you did, or just enjoyed me rambling, then I guess more power to you. Rat self-tamed. Well, into the pot it goes. That's what I think about it. This one. Yep. And that's that. Well. So this is almost done. Which means the colonists are not going to starve. Hooray. And as you can see... huh. Oh, never mind. But rice grows quite fast, as you can see. It's already 64%, whereas bees are nowhere close. Gore hiccup. I like tracking them time and again. It's fun. Rimworld overall is a very therapeutic game. You should take it easy, and if things go wrong, you should just think about what you were not prepared for and adapt. I show this as a general scenario, what you should do in any situation, but some things may not be applicable. For example, you may be unable to plant crops in something like an Arctic desert. That's cute. And you would have to completely subside on any animals in the area for fishing. And fishing is, as such, rather essential. Now, that said, there's also other things you may need to account for example, limited growth periods. I personally like all year growth period, but some areas may not have it, and if they don't have it, it can be a little harder, and like I said before, layers of difficulty. Rimworld can be as difficult or as easy as you make it to be. That's actually something I always liked about Rimworld. It doesn't pressure you into going out of your comfort zone, but you certainly can. Well, is he worth rescuing? Well, Oh, he's dead. Was he worth saving? Not really. So I guess I will need a stockpile sooner. We'll just put it here. Oh yeah, but no. Chunks, only corpses, and that's that. Galatz, be a day, start working on one of them. Gotta go fast, gotta go far. Hello, sweethearts. They really are. Kinda weird calling myself that. God knows I'm useless. Well, this is pretty close. I expected them to be finished just a little sooner, but I guess I have to also point out that colonists would always prefer to be in a lit environment. Comes without saying, and it's easier to tell apart what's going on when there is at least some lighting. So some creature comforts are to be lighted. Now, I also have a Dub's Bad Hygiene mod, and what it adds is the hygiene factor. So something you probably will not need to do, especially with a unmodded gate, is to consider things like restroom facilities and washing facilities. But I will need to, because that's an added layer of difficulty that I like to have. It's just a bit of realism, especially when you are considering how your colony is going to be built. Having said that, that's probably going to be, well, not probably, but is going to be in the next episode, because I do want to wrap this up soon. I mean, I could play Rimworld forever, but I just don't want to make these introductory episodes exponentially longer. Because I really could do it in one sitting. It's just that it probably wouldn't be as easy to get into, I suppose. I mean, you have to bear with me after all, so bearing with me for an hour is already bad enough. Well. I have no idea what that is. Oh, I'm leaving that alone, because I'm not going for a tribal experience. Oof. And they do absolutely nothing in spite of going that fast. Because, well, nothing's connected. Okay, I'll let him wash. Not myself. Either. No, you're not fishing. Um, we're going here. And now it's just a little bit more cozy. Clickety clack, clickety clack. So it's actually really good that we are so close to a steam geyser, because that means we can swap to geothermal power pretty fast. Also, geothermal power is a source of heat. So if you are in a cold environment and you have troubles with establishing heaters, or you experience frequent solar flares, you can definitely build around a steam geyser to keep yourselves a little warmer. Well, it is their problem. And bad hygiene kicks in. Or is it not actually? Is it part of the stock features? Either way, this is kind of why I like it, bad hygiene. Because, well, the mod, I mean. Because that adds this layer of difficulty that you need to take care of making sure that your colonists live in a clean environment, not just for the sake of food, but otherwise contracting infections. Hey, you. Ah, okay. Before you rest, sweetheart, just chop this one down. It's kind of an obstruction. There we go. Roll this out. Creation deprived. Unstable environment, awful bedroom. How is it? Yeah, let's put it back. And this is why I said that you can't rely on wind or solar power to do everything. Especially without a battery. You want to get geothermal or hydro as soon as you can. As well as have battery reserves. Well, quests are not important, right? Now, am I missing anything important? Oh, yeah, it's me, but other than that... Let's see. Storage is going to be next. Okay, so power. You may want to consider to have wood-fired generators or chemical power generators for emergencies, definitely the wood-fired ones. And have a bit of a wood farm, so that way when these don't work, you can have some auxiliary power available to you. For security, security should be the next concern. What's wrong, Jericho? Oh, probably that. Ah, recreation. The colonists are going to get bored out of their little minds if you don't give them some distractions, and distractions can provide a vital breathing room between a mental breakdown and them carrying on doing the work required to ensure the colony is a nice environment where they can survive it. Because mental breakdowns are the most insidious. Not only they have a potential of damaging and destroying stockpiles or furniture, I almost said killing furniture, but also possibly injuring, maiming, or killing your colonists. So you want to get to ensuring that they are not going to be upset as fast as you possibly can. So with some recreation variety, nice. Okay. Also, this is why refrigeration is important in the long term. So you would have stockpiles of food which does not spoil. Also, if you hold shift, you can queue up the jobs. Now, I'm saying, and it sounds obvious, but I quite literally found that out 2 days ago before I was just fighting my colonists when we would be doing something else entirely, when I could have just queued up the tasks for them. Well, then again, that's me, and I do those types of slip-ups often. Go. Okay. Definitely buy the medicine. Berry wine. Ah! That's an interesting trader. Sure, why not? We'll buy that. We don't really need the cloth, so... Good enough trade. And now chest table is ready. Also, you may notice that some of the chairs say good, normal, or otherwise, as well as the beds, and this is where construction skill is important. The higher the construction skill, the better quality of these are. And it is important not only because it has, I believe... No. The hit points are the same, but... What is important is how they affect the mood. Because, for example, this has a beauty modifier of 16 while being good, whereas normal has only 8. And now something like Masterwork or Excellent can really beautify the rooms, and with relatively few items, your colonists are going to feel a whole lot better. So, sweetheart, I believe for the time being, this is going to be it for our colony sim. With any hope, if this was recorded well, I should be able to make another episode, which is going to get into the second part and a few more advanced stuff, and probably I will cover a few more specific niches if they become relevant. Oh, this one goes straight into the pot. As always. Yeah. Thank you for watching and bearing with me, sweetheart. This is it from me tonight. And just remain. Well, what did I say? English.exe has stopped working. Nice. So, this cubic core of a tactical doll is happy if you manage to persevere with me. And hopefully I'll see you next time, and if not, can I really blame you? See you.